Hello everybody, now we begin another episode of What's Happening in Brazil. We start things off by staying up to date with the latest news from the country.
This week, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro said that no vaccines at all will be used in the country. The speech came on the heels of an announcement by the Health Ministry stating its intention to purchase 46 million doses of CoronaVac, a vaccine against a novel coronavirus developed by Chinese company Sinovac, in partnership with the Butantan Institute in Brazil. The president justified his words by saying that the vaccine needs scientific proof of its effectiveness, in contrast to hydroxychloroquine, a substance he has advocated for in the treatment of the disease. However, he did not detail why scientific verification is necessary in one instance and not the other. Upon being barred by the president, the health ministry backtracked, saying it no longer had the intention of buying the Chinese vaccine. Bolsonaro's reaction happens amid a political scuffle with São Paulo State Governor João Doria, responsible for the partnership with Sinovac for research and testing of the vaccine in Brazil. The amount of territory controlled by the militia in Rio de Janeiro has surpassed that of drug traffickers. The armed group already rules almost 60% of the city. 1 in 3 residents lives in areas controlled by the militia. This was the conclusion arrived at by a study undertaken by various institutions based on crime tips in 2019. For the researchers, the analysis provides an important outline with which to comprehend the structure behind the advancement of paramilitary groups in Rio de Janeiro. Furthermore, the study points to the militia's business model and their centralized extortion market. Beyond this, there is flexibility between legality and illegality in the militia's operations, as well as acceptance and aid from authorities.
It has become more expensive to access basic food items such as rice, beans, and milk in 17 of Brazil's state capitals, as the National Basic Food Basket Survey showed. The research takes into account the prices of the goods necessary to feed one person over a month. Faced with this situation, many Brazilians are depending on the help of family members or solidarity campaigns in order to feed themselves.
Meat is very expensive. Coffee, sugar, milk, rice.
Tudo.
I'll admit that sometimes I'm only eating because my daughter brings some rice over. If it depends on me, I don't have the means to buy
Eu
it.
mesmo para comprar não tem condições não.
Mrs. Maria is a domestic worker and resident of the poor areas of São Paulo. With her income cut in half due to the pandemic, she is struggling with the rise in food prices. The price of the basic food basket, the items considered necessary to feed one person per month, has gone up in 17 state capitals in the country. According to economists, the rise in prices, especially for meat and rice, is explained by an increase in exports over the last few months. With the dollar at an all-time high, producers have preferred to sell their goods abroad rather than at home.
Em abril, a gente exportou 69 mil toneladas.
In April, we exported 79,000 tons. In only 2019, 12,000. If you increase exports, you decrease supply internally. So, we live in a dilemma. Since food is going abroad, those stuck paying more are low-income families.
Famílias de baixa renda.
Another reason given for the price increases is the dismantling of public entities such as the National Supply Company that stocks food to prevent a food security crisis. In the last year alone, 27 such locations have been shut down by the federal government.
Tem explicitamente uma política
I believe we have a policy in place that explicitly values the agriculture business and exports, in detriment to internal consumption.
In São Paulo, Brazil's biggest city, the basic food basket now costs around 560 reais, which corresponds to roughly $100. This amount represents roughly half of the minimum wage. However, with high unemployment, for many, having access to food has only been possible through food distribution campaigns.
Isso aqui ajudou a gente pra caramba.
This has helped us a lot. We are saving what we get from the food basket. Then we can buy meat or something of the sort. This has been very helpful because the situation is very difficult. I am unemployed due to the pandemic.
Native people are the protectors of Brazilian fauna and flora in all their different ecosystems, and thus they are seen as threats to those seeking to use the land for other purposes, such as real estate development and agriculture. In the month of October, the Indigenous Missionary Council released their 2019 Violence Report, which indicates a rise in the number of threats against indigenous people all over the country.
In Itacuruba, in the countryside of the state of Pernambuco, around 78 families of the Tuxá Campus people are being threatened with eviction since 2010 for the construction of a nuclear power plant.
They always wanted to build a nuclear power plant on our land. That is why I believe this issue of land demarcation is so hard for us. If they want to build the plant here, then of course they will do what they can to make sure this territory is not protected. That's what they will do.
The case of the Tuxá Campus people is one of those related in the violence report commissioned this past month by the Indigenous Missionary Council, showing there were 134 murders of indigenous people and 34 other unspecified threats against them throughout the country.
Over the last 2 years, things have escalated, and in 2019, they exploded. These cases relating to land conflicts and damage to indigenous patrimony.
The threats they are facing are not only of land invasions, but also death.
I have personally been threatened. I was followed along the access road from town to the village, and this happens every day. But we have to fight. Giving up is much worse.
The backdrop of the violence against indigenous people is the conflict over land. The Brazilian state and Brazilian society reject the notion that indigenous people need land. They can't come to terms with it.
More than 60% of indigenous lands in Brazil are still in the process of finalizing the demarcation of their boundaries.
Sometimes people think that violence is only when they go and kill and beat up a native, but it isn't. There are the violations of our rights. We have the native peoples. We have been really persecuted a lot and having our rights violated. I believe that if today we didn't have Bolsonaro as president, land demarcation would be easier, since he has been made it clear that he hates indigenous people and the descendants of slaves.
Now it's time for Brazilianism.
Hello, I'm Vera Nubia. I'm a nutritionist, and we are going to learn how to make manioc dough. We will need yams or manioc. You will need a container. It can be a clay pot or a stainless steel pan. You can make it with the manioc peeled or unpeeled. I make it unpeeled. I prefer it because I think it makes it easier when washing and fermenting it. We need to completely submerge it in water. Leave it in for 4 to 5 days, and you will see the yam will ferment. Another way is to leave the skin on. You will wash it and leave it in here for 4 to 5 days, in the same way.
Também ele vai ficar de 4 a 5 dias. O tempo é o mesmo, né? O que pode variar.
What may vary is the outside temperature. On hot days, sometimes you only need 3 days. On colder ones, you may need 6.
Ela vai estar assim desmanchando, né?
After these days pass, it will end up like this, all mushy, and we'll know that it has fermented.
A gente coloca aqui dentro e vai lavando.
Then we take a cloth, put the yam in and wash it in the sink. Then you remove the stubs and what's left is the dough. This is the manioc dough. You can throw away the stubs.
Então a mandioca fermentada. Isso aqui é probiótico. A gente pode colocar no tacho desidratar.
As a result, you will have this fermented dough. This is a probiotic. Yam dough is the basis for many delicious recipes, and the process is an indigenous heritage. We can cook many things with this dough, not only cakes, but we can make savory dishes, tapioca-style dishes. We can also dry it.
Então a puba ela tem muita utilidade na cozinha, além de que é muito saborosa.
Did you enjoy the video? If so, hit the like button and share with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on. See you next week!